He is risen. Alleluia. Happy Easter. Many of you today, no doubt, hold differing views on the resurrection. And in a welcoming, open and inclusive church like St. Paul's, we say that's quite okay. After all, the unanswered question is much preferred over the unquestioned answer. And the big question is, did it really happen? I know some of you believe it did. Some of you believe it didn't. Some of you don't know. And some of you are in a conundrum, uncertain whether spectacular things like the resurrection actually happen, even in a Christian context. I personally regard the resurrection as a fact of history, that Jesus was experienced after his death as a living figure of the present, not a dearly remembered figure of the past. You see, the truth of the Easter experience is firmly grounded in Jesus' followers, and especially in an important instance, namely in Paul, who had been an enemy of the Christ follower movement. In his first letter to the Christian community at Corinth, which was written 20 years before the first gospel was written, Paul tells us that the community that Jesus appeared to him and that it radically changed him. He tells of others to whom Jesus appeared. Cephas, or Peter, the disciples, 500 at one time, James and all the apostles. But did Paul think of the resurrection as physical? That's much less obvious in reading Paul's letter. At the end of 1 Corinthians, he explicitly says that the resurrection body is not a physical body, but a spiritual body, a glorified body. It's not transparently clear what he means, but as he says, it's not flesh and blood. So what's my take on this? I have a very simple observation to make about the resurrection. The powers killed him, but they couldn't stop him. He's still loose. He's still out there recruiting supporters to work with him on his passion to transform the world here and now. Megan McKenna shares the following vignette in her book, Not Counting Women and Children, Neglected Stories from the Bible. She was once in a parish mission leading a study on Luke 7. She had a large group of men and women in that study. She had been saying that life happens when we are interrupted, and that some of the most powerful acts of resurrection happen to the least likely people. That we are the people of resurrection and hope, called to live passionately and compassionately with others, to defy death, to forgive, and to bring others back into the community, to do something that is life-giving, that fights death and needless suffering. And then there came this challenge from the back of the church. Someone called out harshly, "Have you ever brought someone back from the dead?" Margaret McKenna paused. She considered her response and then replied, "Yes, I have." And she went on to say, "Every time I bring hope into a situation, every time I bring joy that shatters despair, every time I forgive others and give them back dignity and the possibility of a future with me and others in the community, every time I listen to others and affirm them in their life, every time I speak the truth in public, every time I confront injustice, yes, I bring people back from the dead." As Easter continues to be celebrated over the next few weeks, I invite you to consider this. We should worry less about what people say they believe happened one Sunday morning 2,000 years ago, and more about whether we are living as if resurrection still happens. We should consider the word Easter to be a verb. We should practice resurrection daily. As Clarence Jordan said, The proof that God raised Jesus from the dead is not the empty tomb, but the full hearts of his transformed people. The crowning evidence that he lives is not a vacant grave, but a spirit-filled fellowship. Not a rolled-away stone, but a carried-away church. Let's get carried away as a church and practice resurrection whenever we can, wherever we can, as often as we can, or as long as we can.